Time for the greatest show fi start anew. The ringmaster James, him step inside the frame with a wide.
Well, good morning, Creature Features. I'm your host, James. Welcome to Cinema Clown Around. We got a lot of interesting stuff today. Today we are going to be going over the Superman films. We're going to go a little bit into the Christopher Reeves era, but we're definitely going to focus on the Snyderverse, and then we'll also get into James Gunn's universe too, because that's going to lead right up to Supergirl, which comes out pretty soon. And before we get started, I just want to go ahead and remind everybody to like, comment, subscribe, and send us some topics if there's anything you'd like me to cover. So looking back at the Superman films, it all started with the Christopher Reeves era. Hey Cleo, good to see you again. It all started with the Christopher Reeves era, and this ran from 1978 to 1987. And it started with Superman the movie, 1978, and this was a Richard Donner film. Now, this kind of started a lot of the superhero movie genres and stuff. This was a major hit. They made 3 sequels after this. And, just looking at this, the tagline for the film is, "You will believe a man can fly." Now, I can imagine in 1978, seeing that on the big screen was probably pretty mind-blowing. But then they had Superman 2 in 1980. This one was known as a very troubled production, and they actually had to replace Donner with Richard Lester as director halfway through the movie. I'm curious about this one. I've seen this one, but I've seen the first 3, I remember, but it's been so long that maybe it's time to go back and watch them again. They are really campy though, so it can be kind of hard to watch. But and then the third Superman came out in 1983, and that's where it completely changed tone, where they went heavy camp, a lot of comedy, and they even brought in famous comedian Richard Pryor, who, one of the greatest comedians to ever live. And I feel like he added a lot to Superman 3, and that's how we got the 4th one, although the 4th one, final one of that series, 1987, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. And that one is all about nuclear disarmament, and they kind of go heavy-handed with the message there, so it can be difficult to watch. But, without the Christopher Reeve era, we don't get the Supermans that we've had, going forward. And then, you cannot forget about, the modern era and the reboots, all starting with Man of Steel in 2013. Now, this kicked off the Snyderverse. Director Zack Snyder wrote and directed this. And this was a really serious take on the superhero and the superhero genre in general. A lot of people saw it as a departure from kind of the silliness and the campiness of comic books, and he really was taking kind of a real-world approach with this. There were a lot of great things about Man of Steel, specifically Pa and Ma Kent, played by Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. They add a lot to the film. I wish we would have got a little bit more of Kevin Costner. It's unfortunate that they take him out in the very first film. But he does have a cameo in Batman v Superman, so that's interesting. Henry Cavill plays our Superman in Man of Steel, and that is Superman, let me tell you. Excellent choice. Excellent pick. He embodies Superman really well. He looks good in the Superman outfit. And one of the things I noticed about Man of Steel is he seems like he's always a lot more Superman than he is Clark Kent. You don't see a whole lot of Clark Kent throughout the Snyderverse. It's mainly just Superman who you get to see. So that was kind of an intriguing departure from some of the past stuff. I mean, you saw a lot of Clark Kent in the Christopher Reeves era, and then especially in Superman Returns, which was one that I had forgot to mention. It was kind of a bridge in between the Christopher Reeve era and the modern Snyderverse era. And that one came out in 2006, but it was not a very good film. Continuing some of the great stuff about Man of Steel, Michael Shannon plays General Zod, and he does an excellent job and just embodies the character. And again, it's unfortunate that they had to take him out in the first film, but he added so much to it that his death really adds to the film. And that's kind of part of the whole breakneck ending where Superman decides to break Zod's neck in order to save some people who are nearby. What's pretty illuminating about this is Snyder also has his Batman killing people. So we'll get into that in the next film, Batman v Superman. But, the Kryptonian design was just really cool. The ship and the Kryptonian technology that we get to see, it almost reminded me a little bit of H.R. Giger, who did the art for the Alien movies. I wonder if maybe he was somehow inspired there. And then, we cannot forget about the giant Kryptonian who's in Man of Steel. He does make an appearance in The Flash, which came out a few years back. And they refer to him as a space giant, but he is one of the cooler parts of Man of Steel. And there's a scene where he faces off with an A-10 warthog, and he's able to win that face-off. And then Lois Lane in this, they made a very good choice with Amy Adams. She really embodies Lois Lane, kind of the reporter character of her, but then also, the relationship side with her and Clark. And then, although, you do see her more with Superman than you do with Clark Kent. And then, moving on to 2016, Batman v Superman. Now, this movie is heavily divided fans. A lot of people said they loved it. A lot of people said they hated it. You really didn't get a whole lot of in-between of people saying, yeah, it was okay. I mean, I haven't heard that. And there's a lot of people who haven't even seen it. This was one of those releases in 2016. It kind of snuck by me, and I didn't see it opening weekend, but a few weeks went by, and it had me curious. So I went and saw it, and it completely changed my attitude about DC Comics and the way that they're portrayed and how they can be different, completely different from film to film, and even completely different from the comics. This is a dark and harsh world that they show for Batman v Superman. The Batman, this is Snyder's introduction for Batman for us, and he's serious, to the point of where he's actually taking people's lives. It's kind of indirect in a way. I mean, if he's challenged by someone for self-defense, then he takes people's lives, but he also does it by branding prisoners with the Bat brand, and then people think that they've been talking to Batman, and then they're labeled a snitch in prison and therefore taken care of. So he's killing people and then also indirectly killing people, which completely different than Batman we've seen in the past where, that's his number one rule is no killing, just stay away from that. But then there's also that number one rule of no guns. So I guess they go hand in hand in some ways. One of the cool parts about this Batman is the Batmobile. This is really cool. It's almost like the Christopher Nolan Batmobile on steroids. And it's got like an A-10 Warthog gun on the front of it. So that's pretty cool. It's like a Gatling gun. And then the Bat ship is really cool too. His like airplane type thing. It's almost like an F-22 Raptor. And he's able to like hover around and stuff. That's a really cool wrinkle that they added to Batman v Superman, and I bet Zack Snyder was probably really excited to portray that too. I really like the heroes' attitudes in this one. And now, a lot of people were saying they're too mopey, they complain too much and this and that, but I like how the two of them both believe what they're doing is right and for the betterment of society, and they both believe they have to stop one another. It just adds to the film and makes it so much different. And what was actually pretty captivating is this came out before Marvel Civil War when they had their big fight too. So in some ways, Marvel was copying DC here. Lex Luthor. Now, Jesse Eisenberg plays Lex Luthor in this film, and a lot of people did not like him. They said he was a little too close to the Joker, maybe Heath Ledger's Joker. I thought he was excellent. He was one of those billionaire types. He reminded me of like a Mark Zuckerberg who, they've got the basketball court there at work and all the toys around and stuff, and it's one of those cool workplaces. And I thought that added to the Lex Luthor. Now, one of the best scenes of the film is when Batman decides to break into Luthor Corp and steal kryptonite in order to use it against Superman. And there's a scene where You see Lex Luthor staring at the little spot where he had his kryptonite, and there's a Batmobile sticking up out of the stone, and it's just a really cool little, cool moment in the film, and a cool shot too. What's pretty cool about the kryptonite in this universe too, it glows green. It's almost like predator blood. So you'll see it like this neon green glow, and it looks toxic to humans or super beings. And then, the Russian assassin, the KG Beast, is in this. And a lot of people didn't know that's exactly who that character was portraying. But I wish they would have maybe went into a little bit more than what they did in the film with the KG Beast. There is a Snyder cut or a director's cut of Batman v Superman, or it's called Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Cut. And there's a lot of things that they explain that they either cut out completely of Batman v Superman, or they don't even talk about it at all. So it really explains the story, and it gives a lot more motivation for some of the characters. Doomsday is really cool in this universe. He, is exactly how he's portrayed in the comics, gigantic, unkillable, and, you've got 3 superheroes who are fighting against him, and they're having trouble with him. And what was interesting, too, about Batman v Superman is they stuck to the comics. There's a lot of really cool comic scenes. So they do the Dark Knight Returns, where Superman gets detonated with a nuclear weapon, or right next to a nuclear blast, and you see him, and he gets all shriveled and wrinkled like a raisin, and then after the sun hits him, he comes back to life, and it's just like in the comics. Really, really cool. Then, they've also got them deciding to kill Superman in this film, which that really makes the film so much better, and because you don't really expect that. You expect to at least see Superman surviving. And I do have to give credit to the music there at the funeral. They have this bagpipe playing Amazing Grace, and it really adds to the film. So, if you have not seen Batman v Superman, I would heavily recommend going out and checking that out. Continuing with the Superman movies, we've got Justice League from 2017. Now, this is a problematic film. There's a lot that can be said about this. It was written and started by Zack Snyder, and then they brought in Joss Whedon to help out after Zack Snyder was going through some serious family trouble. And there's a lot of troublesome stuff here. Let's start with the Superman mustache, which is at the very beginning of the film. So Henry Cavill, who plays Superman in this movie, was also on contract with, I think it was the Mission Impossible films. And they said, you have to keep your mustache, like that's your facial hair, you got to keep it throughout the whole thing. And as they were doing reshoots with Joss Whedon, the other studio refused to allow him to shave his mustache. I think Paramount does the Mission Impossible films. And they said, no, absolutely not. So they went ahead and put as much makeup over it as they could, and then just CG'd out the rest of it. And it looks weird. His lip is like, it doesn't look natural or normal, and there's definitely a reason why they ended up taking it out of the Snyder Cut. Now, also, they cut out a lot of cyborg scenes in this, and I've heard that Joss Whedon, this movie pretty much ruined Joss Whedon's career. He was beloved in the sci-fi industry. You had him doing Buffy, he did the Avengers movies, a lot of other stuff. I saw that he actually did the screenplay for Toy Story. I noticed that yesterday. That was a surprise. But, he had issues with Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman, and she actually went to the studio and let them know what was going on. And I think that was kind of what burst the bubble. And it was unfortunate that he took out Ray Fisher's cyborg scenes, too, because I really feel like they added to the film. His Steppenwolf design was awful, too. The main villain of the film is supposed to look cool, and he just didn't, and it's pretty lame, actually. And let's not even talk about the bad ending or the misuse of Batman throughout the whole thing. This Batman is cruel, whereas in the Snyder Cut of this Justice League, Batman is hopeful and supportive and nice. Joss Whedon really messed this one up, and you wonder what the movie would have been like had Snyder been able to finish it. Now, we do end up seeing that. So everybody was saying release the Snyder Cut from 2017 all the way through 2020. 3-4 years of people saying, where's the Snyder Cut, Snyder Cut, Snyder Cut? You saw hashtags constantly on the internet asking for this. And as soon as the pandemic happened with Corona and all of that, and the quarantine, they said, hey, go ahead, go back and reshoot what you need to and give us the Snyder Cut. I was so excited when I got this news. I remembered I had first woke up and was like flipping through the articles, and I saw that and was like, okay, that not only makes total sense, but this is, it's gonna be fun. And it really was. I mean, you got a 4-hour movie, whereas the original, the first one was just 2 hours, and twice the movie, twice the story, twice or 3 times the amount of Cyborg, who actually makes the story make a whole lot more sense, and makes it a better story too. Not to mention their use of Batman in the film. Supportive, helpful, nice. And, you got Superman. You get a lot more Superman in the Snyder Cut version than you do in the Joss Whedon Justice League. They're bringing him back from the dead in this one. And then, there's a fight between the superheroes because Superman is confused at first. What the Flash kind of refers to as the pet cemetery situation, and that is actually what happens. So all the heroes have to fight him at once, and they don't win. They don't do very well. And he also Snyder gives Superman the black uniform in this, and that was another big thing in the comics where, after Superman dies, he comes back and he's wearing a black uniform, and he wore it for a little while, and then eventually ended up going back to his blue and red, but. I thought it definitely made it a much better film, for sure, with that black uniform. And, there was no mustache issues with this one, so that was definitely refreshing. We didn't have to see Henry Cavill with that CGI'd mustache, which looked absolutely ridiculous, and there are countless stuff on the internet, which y'all can go check out, of people making fun of it. You've also got a more hopeful version of this, where Cyborg and his father are kind of working together for the betterment of humanity and to stop Steppenwolf from getting the mother box. And, in a lot of ways, Joss Whedon helped out, and his career going down allowed for the Snyder Cut to be made, because if that first cut of Justice League isn't so dismally bad, then maybe we don't get that Snyder Cut, and maybe Joss Whedon makes a sequel or something that isn't anywhere close to being as good. So getting that Justice League Snyder Cut was a whole lot of fun, and I was very happy for it. I've seen it more than a few times and would heavily recommend it. Now, turning to the modern era, Supergirl. So Supergirl actually started in 1984. They gave her own spin-off movie, and they had Helen Slater as Supergirl. And this was actually pretty well received. It was looked upon as a cult classic, and it's pretty much her coming to Earth, trying to get a powerful device named the Omegahedron. But then Faye Dunaway plays this kind of a strange suburban witch, is how she's described, who ends up getting her hands on the device. So it's the two of them kind of fighting over it. Without this, maybe we don't get the Supergirl that's coming up pretty soon, which it's directed by Craig Gillespie, and it's 2026 summer release, Supergirl, the Woman of Tomorrow. And he really focused on the Tom King comic run. So this is going to be like hard sci-fi. It's going to be space. I don't know if they're going to have a whole lot of scenes on Earth. I assume they may have a few, but most of this takes place in outer space, and there's a lot of kind of Guardians of the Galaxy kind of esque vibes there. And Millie Alcock stars as Kara Zor-El, or Supergirl. And I think she's going to do a really good job. She does make an appearance in the 2025 Superman. And, their connection is through her dog Crypto, which it looks like Crypto is going to play a significant part. And Crypto is actually based off of James Gunn's dog that he had himself, and said like one of his ears went up and everything, that he was kind of a troublesome pet, but very lovable. And you definitely see that in James Gunn's 2025 Superman. You had David Cornsweet playing Superman, or Clark Kent. And in this one, you actually get a decent amount of Clark Kent. It's not just all Superman, although it seems like they kind of forget about Clark Kent in most of these movies. Now, Lex Luthor in the 2025 Superman was played by Nicholas Hoult, and it's just a very good job. Believable Lex and intense too, and I think he definitely added to that. This was kind of a nicer Superman, and the universe was not as harsh as the Zack Snyder universe. It seems like this one's a lot more forgiving. But one of the things that they did do for this was Superman's parents are evil, or at least they're considered to be evil, because they tell Superman, just go to Earth, propagate with as many people as you can, and build a harem so you can rebuild Krypton there on Earth. And that is revealed to the public, and that does become a troublesome thing, which with social media and stuff, people would get something like that instantly on their phone, and they really show that in the film too. And then another highlight of the Superman is Nathan Fillion as the Green Lantern. He's kind of a jerk, but he plays it well, and he really elevates the material, I think. And then, so what I'm curious about is in James Gunn's Suicide Squad, he has Idris Elba playing Bloodsport, and Bloodsport is known to be the guy who put a kryptonite bullet in Superman. So was that David Corenswet that he had shot? I assume that probably was. I wonder if they're going to go into it at all in the Supergirl movie. I assume probably not, but hopefully we see Idris Elba return to the Superman series. And you've got Clayface coming out, which is related to the 2025 Superman, and that's going to be released after Supergirl. So really looking forward to Supergirl, and there was a lot of really good movies and good stuff to come out before this. So if y'all want to go ahead and do some homework for Supergirl, I would definitely encourage checking out these films. Now, I have never done a toy opening before, but I thought it would be fun to do it for this show. So we're going to start with, let's start with the engineer. Oops. All right, there she is, huh? Yay. This should be interesting. All right. Gonna make a nice little seam. Oh, that was tricky. See, I've never done this before. I know people do it a certain way, and there's probably certain rules to this, but you know what? We're just gonna have fun with it. I could just rip it open, but we don't get that. There she is. So this is the engineer. Let's see what they have on it. They used to have little bios on the back, but in the film, the 2025 Superman, Lex puts nanites in her blood, which allows her to shape her body into anything that she thinks up. Now, I actually got these on clearance, but I was only able to find 3 of them, and each one comes with a piece of, what's its name? The robot from Superman. Now, unfortunately, these don't look like they articulate, and I don't want to force it and break it. That's too bad. They should have done that. Should have articulated it, but I was curious about the toys that were going to be released with this film, because it's like, well, are they going to be affordable, or they were about $6 or $7 brand new. But see, there's the engineer. She's a pretty cool character. You see her at the very beginning of Superman. They really should have gave her like a weapon or a sword or something, anything, like. All right, so who do we got next? Superman. All right. Oh, what's the cape? The cape is made of fabric, which is kind of cool. They didn't go the plastic route, so this one actually will flow a little bit. And then let's take Superman out of the package. Huh? All right. Okay, this is cool. I like this. That cape. That's cool. I wonder what purpose the cape serves, because it only goes down to his ankles. I don't even know if y'all can see him from there. Open up here. Yep. And then who do we got next? All right. Yes. Let's see. Okay, so this is Mr. Terrific. And he's really cool. He's a genius level intellect in the DC universe. And he's got a lot of technology. These little things, I think he calls them T-spheres. There he is. Yeah. It says fair play on his arm, both arms, and then terrific on the back. And he's cool. He's one of those now more known, but was lesser known at the time in the DC universe. And he definitely helps out a lot in the film. He's one of the more effective heroes that you see. And I actually really love this design. They have his uniform and everything, and the way that he's sculpted and everything. It's really cool. This is probably my favorite out of all three of these. So yeah, some pretty cool toys. You know, we got, we also went over all the Superman movies. So, you know, we talked about the Christopher Reeves. We talked about the Zack Snyder's Henry Cavill Superman, leading into the David Corn Sweat, and eventually Supergirl, which comes out soon. So definitely go check out all these movies. There's a lot of interesting stuff to watch. And also, I'm going to try to get the other three toys so then we'll be able to actually put this robot together. But in the meantime, actually, it's the right hand. Let's see. Oh, connected. And a leg. This is... Okay, we cannot, well, we can connect the leg to the, that worked, see? Until he gets the torso. It should have, well, this articulates, okay. It's pretty cool. But you have to buy them all to make it, unfortunately. But yeah, so please let me know what you think about those movies. Let me know if there's any superhero movies that you'd like me to cover, or movies in general. You know, we could talk about actors, shows, past stuff. And I just want to remind everybody to please comment, like, subscribe, share. Have an excellent day, and thank you all so much for tuning into Cinema Clown Around Episode 4. Everybody, stay in the cinema.